Child support is calculated in New Hampshire based on the combined incomes of the parties, the number of children, and a division of that responsibility. It shouldn't come as any great shock that if one person earns a lot more than the other one, then they would be paying more in support. And if the person who is the obligor, the person paying, if they make less than the party who needs to receive support, well, then the payments are going to be a lot less. And that leads to the understanding that child support is based on ability to pay. Invariably, the person receiving feels this isn't enough to raise a child on, and they're typically right. And invariably, in that same relationship, the one who's the obligor, the one owing support, is saying, how can I afford to live if I'm parting with this much money for the child? And to some extent, they're both right. Invariably, it's going to seem like too much to one and not enough to the other, for good reason. Raising a child is expensive. But it is based on ability to pay, which leads to sort of an interesting point, which kind of underscores this concept of ability to pay. If I'm the one paying support and I win the lottery, that doesn't necessarily change my support. And if the other person wins the lottery, it doesn't necessarily change what that person receives. It's always going to be based on what's my ability to pay. My ability to pay determined based on my earning capacity. And if I'm fully employed and my income hasn't changed, typically my support isn't changing. That then leads to a very common question of what about significant others? And it's good for folks to understand early that the income of significant others really doesn't bear upon support, except in the limited circumstance where one party is voluntarily underemployed. If I marry someone, if I have a second marriage and it's somebody with a great job and I just suddenly stop working or I stop working hard, it looks like I'm voluntarily underemployed, and proof of what my new spouse's income might be would sort of indicate that, gee, here's an explanation for it. Here's a motive for it. And so it can come into play as proof of whether I'm fully employed anymore. But nevertheless, the actual dollars, the actual income that the spouse is receiving doesn't get thrown into the pot for calculation. It really only gets considered in that limited instance. And for everybody, both the obligor and the obligee, it's all based on ability to pay, factoring in the income of each. Typically, the income of each is going to coincide with their earning capacity.